Okay then, so it is the Beano review. Yeah, I'm going to review the Beano. People living in the UK will know about the Beano. Right? You might not know about it in the States, but the Beano is a long-running kids comic. It's been around forever. It was an old comic book when I was a kid, so I read it when I was about 10 years old to 12, I guess. Okay, maybe I was a bit younger. Maybe from about the ages of 8 to about 11 or 12. Then I moved on to 2000 AD. The big character in Beano was always Dennis the Menace. This guy here. So at least he's on the stamp. But the star, Minnie the Minx, she was also in the Beano as well. And she's a tomboy, basically. The female version of Dennis the Menace. But I think it's very telling that she's the cover star now, and Dennis is relegated to just a stamp on his own book. He's got a story in the middle of the book, but she is the main driving force of the entire book. I won't go through every story, but I'll make wider points about what this comic book is doing, because I think it ties into how our society is getting feminised at the moment. It's been feminised for the last decade or so, but here we go. A lot of the male characters in this book are portrayed as bumbling idiots, but that was kind of always the thing with the Beano, so I don't have a problem with that. That's, you know, kids like to see adults look silly, and you know, that's okay. Here's the main story of the book. Really, it's called Ninjago, about Minnie the Minx, and ties in with that Ninjago thing, you know, the Ninja Lego thing. I think there's a movie coming out as well, so it's very topical. Good idea by the editors here to you know, tie into that and have their main character doing the ninja stuff, and she's fighting against one of the traditional villains of Beano, Walter the Softy, and there he is there. But he's not called the Softy anymore, which I thought was very strange. Walter, he used to be the main villain of the piece, but Dennis the Menace was the main, you know, protagonist against Walter the Softy. It's always Dennis versus Walter. Now it's Minnie versus Walter, right? And Dennis does appear in the middle of this book, and I'll show you what he's doing, because it's really lame. And I don't think he's called the Menace anymore. He's just called Dennis. So Minnie the Minx then versus Walter, but Walter's not really Walter anymore. When I was reading the Beano back in the 1970s and 80s, it was a pansy. It was heavily implied that he was girly and therefore a bit gay. He was spending all his time doing flower arranging and that kind of thing. But there's none of that in this book here. Walter's just an over-the-top comic book villain, and he's just rampaging across Beano Town with this big dragon. So there's nothing effeminate anymore. I guess if you portrayed a villainous boy like Walter as effeminate today, that'd be, I don't know, it would be, what's the word? Homophobic. So they don't do that. He's not really Walter anymore. The whole thing about Walter was that he's really, really girly, and that's why Dennis the Menace was teasing him and bullying him, really. And that's why he was the kind of boy that you don't want to be, because the last thing that a young boy wants to be is some girly, effeminate, flower-arranging boy like Walter the Softy. Young boys want to be tough, you know, and that's kind of why Walter was so despised. But in this book here, there's nothing soft and girly about him. He's just a bit of a pain in the backside villain, really, and he's laughing and joking and trying to mess around with Minnie the Minx. But she easily beats him in the end, as you expect. And she steals his magic glove that he was using to cause all the problems, and she's created a giant duck for herself, which is quite funny. And it ties into Dennis's story in the middle of the book, right? Here's Dennis the Menace. He's not a menace anymore. He's just Dennis. He's just Dennis. No. And here comes the duck bursting into his story, which is a good idea because it's obviously there's continuation from the Minx story into Dennis's story. But it means that she's the driving force behind the book, not Dennis. So Dennis the Menace is a sort of bit player in his own book, really. So this duck is rampaging in Dennis's garden, wrecking his tree house, really. And what's Dennis doing? And is he having any interaction with Walter? No, there's no interaction with Walter at all. Dennis is peripheral on the story. He's just hanging out by himself, doing his own thing. There's no softie bashing going on. And Walter used to have a gang of other softies, other effeminate boys, and they're not in this book at all. All Dennis is doing is just building a treehouse, and look who he's building a treehouse for. You see this? He's got a young girl of colour and some other girl in a wheelchair. That's what he's done. He's built he's built a treehouse for some of the lefty victim groups. How is he Dennis the Menace? It's not Dennis the Menace anymore. It's just Dennis the socially conscious boy from down the neighbourhood, and his friendly dog Nasha. God, the only menace in Beano is Minnie the Minx. She hasn't changed. She was always a tomboy. She was always causing mischief. So she's exactly the same as she always was. It's just that Walter is not effeminate anymore, and Dennis isn't Dennis anymore. And I think that's very telling about what's happened to our society. That it's okay for young girls to act in a bossy, bullying, terrible manner, to rampage up and down the town with a giant duck. But if a boy did it, then that's problematic. So Dennis is just reduced to building a treehouse in his garden. And another thing I noticed about the book is that they have lots of panels where they show the readers of the book, and it's young girls, little girls. When I was reading, see, there's another one there. When I was reading the Beano, right, if they showed me, when I was 10 years old, that the readers of the book were girls, I'd be thinking, oh, I'm reading a girls' book, and I'll stop reading it. Because the whole point of the Beano was that it was a boys' book. And Minnie the Minx was just another one of the boys, really, because there's nothing girly about her at all. That's kind of the whole thing about Minnie the Minx. So the Beano, then, if I bring this to a conclusion, what's happened to the Beano is that the girls are the same. The girls are still tomboys and still causing mischief. But it's the boys that have really changed. The boys aren't boys anymore. The boys are bit part players, emasculated, if you can emasculate a boy. Nice boys who build tree houses in their garden, whilst the traditional target of Dennis the Menace, the soft, girly Walter the Softy, doesn't exist anymore, because it'd be homophobic, so that'd be politically incorrect. Can't do that. So Beano, in doing this, has really turned itself into a comic book which could only possibly appeal to tomboys, to young girls who like to climb trees and get their knees dirty, if that's still a thing nowadays, because I know lots of kids are indoors playing their computer games instead and looking at their iPads. So that's what I made of Beano 2017. The emasculation of boys starts very early indeed. Starts in the pages of the comic books. And it's all about the girls today, but just as long as the girls act like boys. There we go. That's what made of Beano. Oh, quite eye-opening. Thanks for checking out the video. Cheers. I'll be back later on doing some more Marvel videos, I think. No, Marvel. Oh, God, no. DC comic book videos. I haven't actually purchased any Marvel comic books this week. I don't want to waste my money. No. Slip of the tongue. I'm not going to be buying another Marvel comic book until they start signaling to me that they're changing their ways and starting to concentrate on writing good comic books again, rather than pushing their ideological agenda, which we all know about. So that's it. I'll end my video here. Thanks for checking me out, and I'll talk to you later. Cheers. See you guys.